Okay, so recently we talked about the AmaLee situation in terms of the VTuber versus IRL trend, which has been going around. Now, this has been a pretty big trend, right? Because again, it's been something that's been on Twitter where essentially a VTuber will, put up a IRL image of themselves compared to their VTuber model, and that's about it, right? That's literally it. They're literally just showing off their VTuber and themselves. And yeah, that's been a trend which has been going around, which of course has kind of caught on to a lot of different VTubers, even ones that, don't usually show their face, that have decided to, right? Now, of course, there are plenty of VTubers out there who do, show their face and also do VTubing at the same time. And of course, that's, less of an issue for them, I would say. But more so for an issue of VTubers who don't show their face whatsoever and have decided to do so, or are being pressured into doing so over this trend, right? And it seems like a lot of people have been kind of talking about this and speaking out about it, including a couple of bigger VTubers as well, which I thought was very interesting because obviously, as I said, we covered the AmaLee thing of her saying like, hey, this is great, keep posting proof, which of course, some people were not happy with. She got a lot of backlash. Some people were angry at the fact that, VTubers should never show their faces and whatever. And also some people were mad at the fact of, privacy and safety and whatever. And, but I think in the terms of privacy and safety, although it is an issue, right, and it is something that maybe pressures people into doing it, I do think at the same time as well, these people are their own people, so they can decide whether they want to post, their face online or not. I think it's absolutely, it's not AmaLee's fault that they're posting their name on face online, whatever. Which again, I think is pretty crazy. But essentially, Lucy Pyre has actually responded to a lot of the stuff going on as well, saying VTuber versus IRL is trending again. Yeah, this actually trended a while back as well. Saying, so just a small reminder that attaching your real life face to your online persona can have severe consequences. Please only do it if you've seriously considered them. People online can and do use your face for less than comfortable purposes, which obviously, yeah, I think is 100% true. And I think that Lucy Pyre is right there in terms of, this can be concerning for a lot of VTubers out there who maybe will be targeted, during this trend, right? Because, yeah, people can use stuff like AI to kind of, make you do stuff, especially a lot of kind of, sexual stuff or whatever. And it tends to get a little bit weird, right? And of course, this tends to be more of an issue for a lot of female VTubers and streamers out there because, of course, people don't really care about seeing a dude, kind of AI'd into some, not so great videos, right? People will mainly target women over this, which of course, yeah, it's a little bit of a concern, especially whenever people are posting their face over there. But obviously that comes with people, knowing what they're getting into whenever they post their face online, right? And I think that is something that, just people need to consider before they do that, right? And Himamol there says, reason why I don't post my face, lols, which, yeah, obviously is fair enough, right? Saying, I don't care what you look like, I just care about your safety, dog, which obviously, yeah, I think is fair enough. Dark saying, let it be known that if you make your face public, somebody can use your face for deepfake blank. I've seen it happen with many popular VTubers. The barrier of entry to this has been lessened to an absurd degree, which obviously is true, right? And obviously we had the whole grok trend as well, which went around for a little bit at the start of the year, right? And that, of course, blew up and shows you how easy it is for people to do this now, right? Saying these warnings will always fall to deaf ears and be followed by, yeah, but I didn't think it would happen to me. And then Lucy Pie says, it can happen to anyone. Making content makes it even more dangerous, but regular everyday people get doxed deepfaked all the time because of just one person who wanted to do it. One person is all it takes. Thing, I was waiting to hear your input. It feels like it's mainly smaller VTubers wanting attention in a bad way. And then obviously Lucy says, of course, anyone is allowed to make their own decision about showing their face/body in any way. I've seen a lot of positivity about it, even encouragement to do it from some that don't actually acknowledge the potential danger. The internet is scary and AI is used to hurt daily, which obviously, yeah, I think is true, right? I think there is 100% a concern that people have with the rise of AI and stuff and people showing their faces, which, yeah, I mean, Lucy Pie is right there. Now, of course, it's kind of in regards to the whole AmaLee post because there wasn't really much, concern for safety or anything there until obviously, we go into the reply by saying, well, some of you are taking this too seriously. I'm really trying to express support of people who do it on their own volition, which of course is great, but, there is the safety aspects as well, people are concerned about. I really feel like this is blown way out of proportion. The vast majority of content creators use their real face, and the vast majority are fine. I feel like this could be detached, misplaced, and unhealthy paranoia. The most big streamers are already doxxed to some extent, and deepfakes of popular female streamers exist in the thousands to hundreds of thousands. Most face streamers stream without the knowledge that this can happen, but I think many VTubers don't make that consideration. And I do think, Lucy is correct there as well. I think that, people are saying, well, there's tons of face cam streamers out there. Why aren't they the ones that are, surely there can't be an issue if they're not being effective. But the case is they actually are, right? And as I said before, the male streamers, maybe not so much, right? People don't care about deep faking them onto some weird video or whatever, right? People don't care about that. But you think about some of the biggest female streamers out there, your Pokemains and things like that. Think about how much they get kind of edited onto things and whatever. It's quite a lot, right? It is quite a lot, and it is something that is an issue, and that's something that VTubers would have to face if they did end up showing their face during this trend, right? And obviously being a VTuber is nicer because that stuff doesn't happen to you, right? You think, for example, like, you think of some of the biggest VTubers out there, Iron Mouse, AmaLee, all of these people, right? There isn't any of this content like on the level of a lot of the kind of, AI stuff that has been going around of some of the top female streamers, right? There isn't anything kind of similar to that, right? Sure, maybe people make NSFWR, but a lot of the time they even encourage that, right? Because it's not actually them. But you don't see any of them, being AI'd onto anything because they don't show their face, right? And of course, I think that is one of those things where, it is pretty fair enough, right, to be a VTuber, because it does protect you from that sort of stuff, because they don't have a single post out there which is like that, whereas compared to the top female streamers out there, they do, right? Which of course is something that maybe people don't really consider. But yeah, I mean, that's fair enough. Saying wasn't the whole point of VTubing to be completely anonymous? Today isn't the VTubing versus IRL kind of defeat the whole point? And obviously we went into this debate yesterday. I think my personal opinion is yes, VTubers should probably stay, without IRL faces or whatever. But also at the same time, I think in the kind of pursuit of good content and whatever, if a VTuber wants to show their face or wants to do IRL content, doesn't even have to show their face fully. If they just want to do IRL content, I think they're well within their rights to. And maybe some people would say, well, that doesn't count as a VTuber. You're not actually a VTuber, and that's fine. If people don't want to count you as a VTuber, that's fine, as long as you're making good content, right? I think that's the only thing that really matters. I think a lot of people get very hung up on the labels of things, like oh, you're not a real VTuber. You streamed your face one time. I can't believe you do that. It's just like, okay, sure, right? They don't have to be a real VTuber. I mean, a lot of people would still consider them to be a VTuber. But yeah, you think about all the people that show their face. Some of the biggest VTubers that people would consider VTubers have shown their faces, right? You think about, or just shown their faces, or shown their IRL self. But like, obviously, most people tend to not show their face, but a lot of them tend to show their IRL, like just like body. A lot of the time it tends to be for like cooking and things. You think about Scooch-chan and Onigiri and Reinho and people like that, right? They don't usually show their face. Obviously, I know like Onigiri has like a mask. I know Scooch-chan uses like a just the camera angle isn't like pointed at her face. Which of course, yeah, I think is like a cool bit of content for them to do, right? And you think about people like Cottontail as well. She also shows we know what she's looks like. As well as who else? Vex, so many people, right, that do that, and they would be considered big VTubers, I would say, right? But of course, I don't know. It would be interesting to see what those people's opinions would be on them, as to whether they think they are a VTuber or not. Because I think you're gonna have a pretty hard time saying someone like Cottontail isn't a VTuber. But again, I don't know. Maybe they don't think that. But again. There's also been some other replies, including from Pipkin Pippa as well, saying consequences can extend not just to you, but families and friends as well. Please be mindful of not just where you are now in your career, but where you might end up. Saying basically, you can never regain your anonymity, so consider carefully it's something you want to give up, alright? So true, and anything you put on the internet is hard, if not impossible to delete fully. It's also not fully in our control, what happens to it. But I'd also say don't let that scare you. Look at millions of people who have shown their faces. They're doing just fine. It's definitely a good choice for some people, and in general I don't think that it's the end of the world to revoke or lose your anonymity, but just that individuals should be aware that it's what they're doing and the potential consequences of it at the end of the day. So people never extend this warning to non-VTuber creators who show their face or plan to. I've noticed. It said, if you're already showing your face, what's the point of warning you not to? Cat's already out of the bag. Saying this is such a nothing burger and common sense. This is being totally alarmist, and as if VTubing is the only outlier where this is a thing, is a conversation being brought up by actual losers attacking AmaLee and calling her a tourist for flesh posting. It's stupid to encourage. This is the conversation that comes up every few months in the sphere, and if you're not aware that you probably are if you're not aware of that, you probably are an actual tourist. What does AmaLee have to do with this conversation? Encouraging people to be cautious about their privacy isn't stupid. So actually, yeah, they were talking about AmaLee in the post. Maybe Pippa hasn't seen it. I don't know. So it's funny, the concept of flies out the window for a little bit of attention. So yeah, obviously a lot of people just kind of, just saying to be a little bit more careful and mindful with, taking part in this trend, and obviously just having a good think about it right before you do decide to really, post yourself alongside your VTuber and your persona, right? Which of course I think is fair enough. But yeah, I mean, that is essentially all there is for this video. If you guys did enjoy it, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Also, go to Game Subs, use my code Kaza, get 10% off. Again, they've got a ton of really cool stuff over there. Definitely recommend checking it out. And yeah, see you guys in the next one. So, see ya.